What's going on, guys? I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I actually have kind of a fun video topic to go over. So last night I went to the first kind of big trade night event that we had locally. I wouldn't exactly say it was local. I would say it was a little bit further than local, but it was Huntersville, North Carolina. About 20 minutes, 25 minutes from Charlotte, about 30 minutes from where I am. But anyways, it was a fantastic event. I got a lot of experience and I saw a lot of stuff. So basically this whole video, I'm going to be going over things that I saw, the experiences that I had from arriving there to the end of the night. So I really did not want to go to the trade night initially because I felt nervous, I felt anxious. I was deciding to go to this trade event instead of staying for work and making money and making tips. I run a bar. That's part of my lifestyle, but it's also part of my livelihood. I don't make a serious income to provide for my family from YouTube. That all comes from working and running Starlight on 22nd, a bar in Charlotte, North Carolina. But anyways, I decided, you know what? A couple friends of mine have been asking me to come out to these trade nights for a while, and asking me to come out to other trade nights as well. And I just decided, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's go. Let's take the night off. It doesn't always have to be about money. I need to get to know everybody in the community. And this is a good way to get to know the locals and a lot of the local vendors, because I went to a daytime event. And, I didn't take footage of that because that was the first daytime event that I had. But I think I did a video also reviewing and going over how that daytime event went. So that was at Rally Squirrel Sports Card Shop here in Charlotte. But they also do Pokemon, they do anime, they do a little bit of everything. This one was at Ketchum Collectibles in Huntersville. So, again, you guys know I'm a family man. You're gonna hear Aspen in the background. You might hear the dogs in the background. There's always stuff going on here. It does make it hard to make content, but I push forward. I make content. It's what you gotta do when you're amidst this stuff. Moving forward. Also, it was very nice. I could have easily chose to spend the time that I had off last night with my family, and Diana was nice enough. And if you are married or have kids, you know how this goes. You kind of have to get permission in a way to actually go out and do stuff like this. So it was very nice of Diana to allow me to actually go to this trade night and experience what it's like and meet people and mingle for several hours when that time could have been spent with my family, could have been spent working, earning. Anyways, it was a really good experience. Let's go ahead and get into it. Sorry for taking up your time. So I walk in the door. First thing I see immediately. Now we're going to go over stuff we've seen here. There's modern, PSA 1, a little bit of vintage, and a little bit of everything, every little niche you can talk about. Other TCGs were there, and it was some pretty wild revelations I had seeing other TCGs, with such a high demand locally. But we'll get into all that. First thing I do, I step in immediately. I'm starting to talk to someone. I'm asking what their binder is. I go in, and I am going to get footage the next time I go. This time around, I didn't want to be that guy that came in and didn't appreciate the community or get to know everybody first. Instead, I come in, swinging my camera around like, hey, what's up, everybody? What do you got here? All up in people's face. I didn't want to be that guy. It's different at Collecticon. That was really a big deal and kind of, once in a blue moon event, once a year, very special. So, and I knew you guys wanted content. I knew you guys wanted to live vicariously through me at that event. So, and I'll continue doing that for Collecticon. But for this event and for the other daytime trade event that I went to, I didn't record anything. I just went. I was there. I was present. I talked to people. I didn't even sell anything. I didn't even trade anything. It was all basically conversations and discussions I had with people. And it was pretty awesome overall. And I think it was necessary for me moving forward with the channel to get a good idea locally of what people are doing, what they're trading, what they're selling, what they're collecting, all that good stuff. So I walk in. Immediately, I see the store. The store is really cool. It almost looks like it would be in like an old school arcade shop or something. It had lights all around it. It was a perfectly square building in the middle of like a square shopping center. It was really weird how it was set up, but it was really cool and unique. I liked it a lot. But it was a pretty I would say, kind of small space. It felt tight. Now, it was jam-packed with people. Now, this is at 8 o'clock. It started a little early. Maybe at 7:30, people were rolling in there. And this went all the way till midnight, which I pretty much stayed almost till midnight. I think I left at like 11:30. But right when I got in, there was people with their binders lined up. You know, their glass display went all the way down the store. And you guys, I'm going to record all this the next time. You're going to see everything. They had pretty good inline pricing. And the owner was also very negotiable on those prices, so I thought that was pretty cool. There were a lot of alt arts that I still need, but I didn't go with any cash, guys, because I didn't want it to be about me picking up cards or getting deals. I really wanted to focus on the community and see if I could learn anything. And if someone really wanted to trade for something big, because I brought my best of the best. I brought my first editions and I brought my Grail cards. So I brought everything that I really didn't want to sell or trade, but I was willing to if the right card was there. But no trades were made, nothing was made. I got to show a lot of people a lot of cool cards, so that was really cool. I think a lot of people appreciated that. But right when I got in, there was a fellow with a binder of, you know, a lot of modern stuff. He had just gotten into it for a couple months. So I got to see what the average collector's binder would look like after 9 months. And this is what I saw. I saw mainly ultra rares. I saw a lot of Crown Zenith. He had a lot of highly graded Crown Zenith cards. And he had some alt arts. Some really nice ones. One of which that I saw and immediately snapped on was an Espeon VMAX. It was on the first page of his binder. There's a really nice Espeon VMAX from Fusion Strike. A lot of these alt arts right now have trended down, and I swear I think they're about to start trending up. The same thing with a lot of booster boxes in Scarlet and Violet and Sword and Shield, which I really wanted to cover today, like the broad view of all these booster boxes and how they're doing, but I really feel it's important to talk about this trade event and what I experienced and tell that story. So I saw this Espeon, immediately wanted to make a deal, and that, you know, again, it wasn't my intention going in there that I was going to be wheeling and dealing, but naturally that was already beginning to happen. I told him, you know, I've got a lot of high-end stuff, but I also have a stack of alt arts here. He looked through my alt arts that I had duplicates of, and he saw a Lugia, which is a very popular alt art, and he immediately wanted to make some kind of trade for the Lugia. I am still unsure if it's a good idea to just sell alt arts just because the market's low. Just because everyone is selling off their alt arts doesn't mean that you have to. It doesn't mean that you have to take whatever the value is right now. I honestly believe a lot of the alt arts that are banger alt arts, like chase cards like the Lugia, Blaziken from Chilling Reign, Brilliant Stars Charizard, a lot of these chase cards that are fantastic, I think at the very low value are worth like $200. They are so hard to pull. That Espeon VMAX is right up there, but the market values that Espeon VMAX that he pulled at 120. So for him, it was a very, very easy pull. For me, it was like, I've opened a lot of Evolving Skies, and I cannot seem to get cards like that. So now I did get the Leafeon V alt art recently on a stream. That was very cool. It was so refreshing to actually pull one of those chase cards from that set. But here we had a VMAX that I really needed for my collection. And honestly, Espeon V and Espeon VMAX are some of my favorite, like absolute favorite alt arts. So we're talking about it. I told him we would come back around to it. Long story short, he ended up wanting a first edition Jolteon that right now is on eBay. And I made some sales while I was there on eBay, some big sales on eBay. So I'm really excited about that. I'll talk about that at the end here. But, long story short, he ended up leaving early and we just never got around to closing that deal. So it kind of sucks because I wanted to walk out of there with at least something, but, it gave me an idea of like what everyone's looking for. There's a lot of modern alt arts in there, right? There's a ton of modern alt arts. Everybody has them, but that doesn't mean that everyone's necessarily willing to give them up. They're super liquid. Everyone's trying to exchange cards, trying to figure out how they can work deals to get more of these alt arts. Alt arts are the chase cards of these generations, of this modern era of Scarlet, Violet, of Sword and Shield, Sun and Moon. Everyone there was kind of on the same grind, I feel like. There was a lot of niches, which I'm going to talk about, but it was a lot of, people grinding, trying to figure out how to make trades for ultra modern alt arts. Another big theme that I saw as I worked around the room, right? So I went around the entire room looking at people's binders. They're like, what do you have? What do you have to sell? What do you have to trade? And I know that's why you should be at a trade event, which is why I didn't really want to necessarily go to the trade event, because I don't feel like I have a lot to barter with right now. My wife told me to take my 151, and that would have been such a smart thing to do, because it turned out everybody there wanted 151, and they weren't asking about Japanese 151. Everyone was asking about English 151. Now, I did see Japanese 151 in there, and I will say that, my God, those artworks are phenomenal. The change of texture and the quality of the cards, absolutely phenomenal. I think it's just a short matter of time until we start really covering Japanese. And I think 151 Japanese would probably be a really good place to start, but I'm not quite sure I'm willing to pay the premiums, for a Japanese booster box. It just seems like it's a little bit too much for me right now to jump into that, that game and that rabbit hole, when you can still find really good TikTok deals for, English, ETBs and 151 UPCs all over TikTok. I'm still going to ride that English wave, but there was a lot of Japanese there too, but everybody wanted English 151. And I'm not talking about just the chase cards. I should have brought what I should have brought there is not what I brought there. I should have brought all of my 151 bulk. I'm talking about commons. I'm talking about hollows. I'm talking about reverse. I'm talking about ultra rares. I'm talking about the V cards, the illustrations, all the way up to the SIRs. But the SIRs, everybody wanted the SIRs there, but everyone also equally wanted all those cards to complete their set. There was no one in there completing their set by pulling the cards. When I told people that I was 2 cards away from completing the set and that I wanted to pull it all myself, they were like, dude, why? That is painful. Why would you want to open that much product? That's insane. Like, I couldn't do that. Because people, when I mentioned the cards I needed, they're like, oh, I've got the Nidoking, I've got the Hyper Rare Mew, and I was like, nope. We're going to pull these cards. That's what I promised I was going to do with 151. So I saw a lot of that. Working the room. There were a couple people interested in my cards. I brought some of my grails, crystals, gold stars, some shinings. There was somebody interested in my shining Mew, but they wanted less than market, which I understand. When you're going to a trade event, you're trying to cash out, or you're trying to get cash deals where you don't have to deal with eBay sales, shipping stuff out, taking a 13% hit on selling fees on eBay. I totally understand the hustle there. But for me, a lot of these cards I picked up on eBay and I paid a premium for, so I really am not able to just offload them just because the cash is, a deal that doesn't involve me shipping and paying fees. Guys, I've gotten very used to using eBay. I like eBay. And I also now understand why all of my cheaper auctions sell. I understand it now because, when I'm selling stuff like for instance, all these 151 cards, like cheaper EX cards, that's exactly the kind of stuff that people were looking for there. So if I'm selling this stuff for cheap auctions, that's the kind of stuff people are looking for. People are looking for the alt arts, cheap stuff to finish their 151. I did run into one guy halfway through that was in, this goes into the whole whatnot world. He had just cleared like $1 million, and this is like total revenue. I think his profits were probably, somewhere along the lines of, $100,000, maybe $160,000 for the years, something like this. I don't remember everything perfectly. I don't have a photographic memory, but I was very impressed by this individual. They go to Japan once a month. They were, and the store owner confirmed this, they would come into the store and pretty much clean out all of the product as far as vintage packs, high-end cards, and they're whatnotting all of it. They actually had a really good reputation on Whatnot. And, I was asking them, like, what is your strategy? And they were saying that they were typically, doing lives for cards, doing whatnot for cards that were very, very highly gradable. So they had like something like a 90% rating on PSA 10 returns. Like 90% of the people that bought from this whatnot person were getting, shout out to you, Dalton, for talking to me. But if you are watching this, but it said like 90% of the people that bought from them ended up getting PSA 10s. So, while I've heard opposite sides of the story, like people dog on whatnot people, whatnot sellers, but there's two sides of the story. You can be a good whatnot seller and you can be a bad whatnot seller that's just, over leveraging buyers. But in this case, it seemed like people were getting really good grades back on cards they got from whatnot. So everybody was winning. And this guy was doing it full time and going to Japan once a month. I just thought that was really cool. It was really eye-opening to meet someone like that. There's just full time doing Pokemon. And, I asked, like, what are your friends and family? Like, what does everybody think about this? And he just said that one of the biggest things for him was that his support system was really good. His family, his dad was super cool. His friends all supported him, and he's never looked back since. So that was really cool. It seems like there's still a whole lot of opportunity out there for people that want to go all in on Pokemon and do whatnot. It seems like there's still, he said things have only amped up, that things have not been slowing down at all, that he can't even get enough product to put up. And this individual actually had a stack of raw gold star cards. Most of them were more played condition. He said that this was one of the first times he picked up more played cards, but he said when there are certain cards that are so valuable or rare or hard to find, all conditions aside, he will still sell them. So it was really cool. That would have been really cool to get a photo of. I probably should have done that. He was like, I'm the only dude in here fanning out gold stars. And then I was like, nah, you're not the only dude in here fanning out gold stars. But I will say, another thing I noticed going around the room is that everything was raw. No one had graded cards, and the graded cards that I did see were really junk slabs. A lot of them were junk slabs, and this is not throwing CGC under the boat, but there was a lot of CGC mid grades, lower grades. There were a lot of very common cards that were graded. People were trying to sell a lot of Crown Zenith and PSA 10, and it still wasn't really moving there, which is why I was offering to do a deal for my first edition Jolteon. I wanted the Espeon and I wanted 2 PSA 10 Crown Zenith cards, because we don't know what's going to happen with the Crown Zenith market. Obviously, it's a good deal for me if I'm making a trade and I'm selling something that's vintage that I personally love, that somebody else really wants. I'm going to try and get the better end of that deal. Again, that deal with the Espeon never happened. I was busy talking with people all night, but that's one of the things I regret going there, that I should have hammered in that deal, because the first deal I made that night was probably one of the cooler deals that I was going to make for the night. And I still have this Jolteon. It is on eBay, but this was a duplicate first edition Jolteon, so I really didn't need it. But yeah, I brought some stuff in there. Going around the room, I noticed that everything was binders. So there was no graded cards. It wasn't like people just had their cards stacked, although I did see a lot of boxes and stacks. Obviously, for trade nights and looking through what you want to buy, binders are one of the best ways to go about that. Everybody there knew what they were doing. They all had trade binders. It made things easier. In my opinion, the trade binder actually is counterintuitive to having stacks of singles and top loaders or card savers. I also want to say that going through card savers was a lot more of a hassle for me when I was looking through people's collections than it was going through top loaders. Why do I say this? Well, the simple fact is top loaders slide and fan out really easy. The guy with all the gold stars, all of his cards were pretty much in top loaders. So it might not be the best for grading, but for when going to trade nights, it makes it very easy to fan through stuff, shuffle stuff. The card savers tend to they're kind of plasticky, sticky, rubbery feeling. They kind of stick with each other, whereas top loaders slide very easily. I feel like binders and card savers are a little bit counterintuitive, because if you're going to trade night events like this and trying to sell a lot of stuff and trade a lot of stuff, because With the binder, each page you're seeing multiple stuff. I think it makes it much harder to focus on one thing at a time that you might like. Whereas if you're going through one at a time, it really allows you to focus on one card at a time. Just my 2 cents on that. So I noticed all binders, all raw, no slabs. Even the high-end vintage stuff, there was some people there with some higher-end vintage stuff. Really no first editions, mainly just unlimited high-end vintage. There was a super clean Skyridge and Aquapolis cards. There was some super clean WotC cards. There's a Blaine's Charizard that I really liked, an Expedition Tyranitar I really liked. There was an Aquapolis Tyranitar. That's one of my, like, all-time favorite cards. Like, I don't know why I still don't own that card. It is phenomenal. I love it. I'm still working on Expedition Aquapolis and Skyridge in my binders. So my binders would have been kind of fun to take there to see if there was something I could pick out. But the other thing was everybody wanted, like, top of market pricing. There really wasn't a lot of opportunity to pick up stuff there other than modern. At these trade events, I think your best opportunities are buying the modern stuff there that people pull, and they don't realize how rare these cards are. They're just like, oh, I pulled this out of a couple packs. I'll do 120 for it. And I'm like, I know that I would pay that on eBay, but I would still have to wait shipping. I would still have to pay taxes on top of that. So cash deal for like market price for some of these alt arts right now, which the market's down a lot, it's like a no-brainer at these trade events. Go in, clean out the alt arts. If you can buy a lot of them for good price and clean them out, I think it's a no-brainer. So yeah, all things that I noticed. I also want to say that when I got about an hour into it, you know, I got, and they had pizza and drinks, but I literally was just so focused on talking to people. It was like research, really. It was like me doing deep dive research on like the average collector binders and like what people were going for in there. And one thing that shocked me, and I mean shocked me, because I didn't realize there was such a big market for this. And I didn't realize how nice the cards were, but oh my goodness. One Piece is so big. Like One Piece is crazy. Like, and it could be a really good time to get into One Piece. You know, there are some people, you know, some other channels that really mainly talk about Pokemon that have, you know, talked about and maybe pumped a little bit One Piece, but I get it now. I absolutely get it. I was asking as many questions as I could about One Piece. What are the highest end cards? What is stuff that people are looking for? What are the cost of booster packs that, you know, people were selling there for cash? And, you know, I was very tempted to buy booster packs there for $10 a pack, just because it seems like you can't find One Piece product anywhere from what all these guys were saying in there that were all One Piece fanatics. And, you know, granted, a lot of them have made a killing off of One Piece already. It's amazing. I mean, you know, everyone's getting into Pokemon, and I still think that that's an underrated and undervalued market, because there's all these other animes, there's all these other TCGs that people are getting into and hyping up, and it makes it very easy to lose focus from Pokemon, even though I still feel like Pokemon, being the top franchise, like, in the world almost, is going to prevail regardless. But it was very shocking to me, the One Piece market, and the, you know, the cash grab of it all, and the rarity of it all, and the pull rates, and, you know, how the fact that like the most valuable chase cards in a lot of Pokemon sets are going to top out at $90. But in One Piece, you can open a couple packs and boom, you've got a $90 card, offload that for an alt art. You know, people are making all kinds of plays like that. And, you know, one play somebody made, you know, they picked up a card from One Piece, and someone traded them, or they traded a Dragonite V from Evolving Skies that somebody really wanted for a One Piece card. It was a fair trade at that time. They were both around $90. The One Piece card today is now worth $400. So I think it was like something Law, I think. I'm forgetting exactly the name, but I know it had Law in it. You guys that are One Piece fans are going to know this. But I really do want to get into the One Piece market. I looked over their binders and saw all the cards they were trying to sell and trade. Yo, One Piece is actually phenomenal. I'm not even into the One Piece anime, but I'm about to be. I like watching anime when I have time for it. I haven't watched anime, you know, I haven't watched anime continuously in a long time. There are a lot of animes that I like that have nothing to do with TCG. And One Piece has been going on for a long time, and the anime is still going on. That's one thing that I think is really strong with One Piece, is that if the anime has started and doesn't stop, they have something they can continuously build on and build that franchise up. And right now it's the beginning of One Piece still, right? It's been out for a year. We're up to 05, which is One Piece's 5th set that's come out. There's already like a $4,000 to $7,000 card in the 5th set to come out of One Piece. It is insane the prices that these cards are fetching. But when you look at these binders and you look at these cards, they're actually phenomenal. Like, they look beautiful. So that like blew my mind. I didn't have any cash, but I did consider like zelling, $10 a pack just to get one of each pack of all the sets, because that would have been really, really cool just to have a little diversification. As we're getting deeper down the rabbit hole of, Pokemon and just collecting TCGs in general, I'm looking at other opportunities too. And I don't think that it's so singular where I'm like, I'm only doing Pokemon. There's only room for Pokemon. I did buy the 25th anniversary Yu-Gi-Oh sets that came out. I do like Yu-Gi-Oh as well. I love Yu-Gi-Oh Vintage. I haven't deep dived into buying and collecting Yu-Gi-Oh again. I think there's a huge market there, but One Piece is very tempting. I also think Dragon Ball Z is very tempting. Like, there's so much good stuff coming out these days that it doesn't have to all be focused on Pokemon. And honestly, I think that this channel is going to branch out into more TCGs soon. So I would look forward to that. But guys, if you're considering getting into One Piece, it could definitely be a move, and I highly recommend it. If you can find good pricing on One Piece, not scalped, overpriced, overpaying prices. I mean, look at the recently sold listings. Look at some of the lower comps for the, older sets. Look at the best prices you can find and try and wiggle, some deals in there. If you can get some stuff off TikTok. I haven't even looked at One Piece on TikTok, but I know TikTok. I know my wife probably still has coupons on TikTok that'll work for stuff like that. I might start investing in One Piece as well, because one, chase the stonk. Chase the money. Okay, I get that. But also, oh my goodness, these cards are beautiful. They're absolutely gorgeous. And if you can get in now, you're still on the forefront of the beginning of this TCG. It started last year. There's only 5 sets. Really good chance here to get in and get in strong and start to diversify and accumulate on One Piece. Okay, we're done there on One Piece. Another thing that I got a really good discussion out of, and thank you if you're watching this channel, because you are the reason that I'm covering this topic, is the PSA 1 market. Really, really interesting market, right? And so I met this individual who showed me his briefcase of all of his PSA 1, PSA 1.5 cards, and he was explaining to me that the reason this market is so incredible and so much fun and people love it is because Pokemon has gotten so inflated and so overpriced that it's made it very hard for people to come into the hobby strong and buy all the nicest, PSA 9, PSA 10 cards. It's just not affordable or feasible for a lot of people financially. And I completely understand that. When I first got back into the hobby, I was buying super dirt cheap collections, and I've since sold a lot of those cards, and in my head, I'm happy about it. I'm like, I sold all those cheaper, like a lot of them were played or damaged or whatever. Little did I realize that there was a massive market behind cards like that, and that I probably could have really squeezed a good bit more out of those cards because of the people that specifically are looking for these damaged, played cards that, are not coming back, the point of no return as far as condition goes. There's a huge market for that. Like, there was only, I think, 2 people there that were collecting ones. One had them, rough cards, bindered, and had some slabs, and the other guy had a very official briefcase, who was giving me the down low on all this stuff. But one, PSA is pop controlling not only high-end stuff, PSA 10s for vintage, but they're doing it they're doing it with PSA 1s and 2s as well. Now, I know you might say, no, they're not doing it with 2s, but they're doing it with 2s as well. To get these lower grades can actually be kind of difficult. 1.5, 2s, it can be kind of difficult, and there are low pops for these cards. The other aspect of it is, and this is kind of a cope statement, but the character. That the cards are giving character, that they're from someone's childhood, that they have a story, that they have a past. I personally actually agree with that, and I like it a lot. I think a lot of you that have your childhood cards and got them graded and still own them, bravo. That's a really cool thing to have. That's a cool story to go with. A lot of what we love about collecting is, being sentimental, having memories, having a story behind the card. Yes, my Sky Ridge Charizard is amazing. Is there a story behind the card, though? No. It's a really cool card to have in my collection, but there's no story to it. Now this, which I'm going to talk about here in a second, this, on the other hand, this Wartortle, which seemingly looks like a base 2 Wartortle, but it's really special. It's actually a double gold stamp error, which I've since sold, and we're going to talk about this at the end. But this is a error card with a double gold stamp. I've been talking about this card a lot. I really love it. But this is, this is from Top Deck Magazine. It got a gold stamp wizard stamp. You guys might not notice it, but look a little bit closer. Hopefully you can focus in. And you'll notice that it was double stamped. Very rare, hard to find error. And just like I like the PSA 1 idea in that discussion, I like the error market as well. And there was also a collector there with a lot of errors. A lot of stuff that I don't quite understand, but like my mind is blown by the amount of errors on certain cards. Like Blastoise having a red dot ink error, and the stage error, and the illustrator error. I mean, my mind was blown last night by how much information came in, and I thought, I'll make separate videos about this, but honestly, I need to do it while everything is fresh in my head so that I don't end up having to feel like a grandpa going senile, writing down bullet point notes. Even though I am a grandpa going senile, it seems some days. So another thing with the PSA 1 market is with the pop controlling of a lot of these cards, they've become very sought after. So you have some PSA 1s that are actually fetching PSA 9 pricing. And this is not the first time I've seen this. I've seen it online. I've seen it talked about. I see it on eBay all the time. But I also have seen it at other trade events where people collect PSA 1. That is a niche market. It's a very real niche market that's not just an estranged market that's going to die out. That market is here to stay because those cards have cemented value and because of the whole strategy and the mindset going into it. When you're collecting PSA 1, you can do what I did early on, buy a super cheap collection of someone's junk cards that they feel like are worthless, and then next thing you know, you've got some PSA 1 first edition holos in there, or just unlimited holos that are PSA 1, but are really hard for people to get. And what was your cost on that collection? Your cost basis was like next to nothing because they were cards that someone didn't want. The whole thing with PSA 1 is another trash. Trash is another man's, one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? That the way that saying goes. The same can be applied with PSA 1. That's why I love PSA 1. That's why I love that idea that there's treasure out there still to be found. And when it comes to PSA 1, there's treasure everywhere. There's so much opportunity when it comes to PSA 1. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to get into PSA 1, but I will certainly keep my eyes open in the future for when I have damaged cards that are kind of unique and seeing an opportunity there. So, with that, anybody can get into PSA 1 collecting, right? There's a market there, there's value there, and you don't have to have the money to go after cards like PSA 9 cards. It is very hard in this day and age. I've had some amazing opportunities to buy collections, some of which that I regret on, some of which that I feel I did good missing out on. But even collections that were very top-notch, high-end, vintage, very minty, very clean by veteran collectors, even those collections that I missed out on, it was very hard to determine that those cards, not even sleeved, just raw, stuck into a binder, is very hard to determine if those cards could ever be PSA 9 or 10. Because being in there raw over time, going against the plastic, getting micro scratches all over the cards, highly unlikely. But then again, anything happens with grading. In my recent video, we talked about Radar's Illustrator Pikachu. who knows what's going on with grading these days? Super subjective. I know that's another Cope phrase, but it is. It's super subjective. We have never been able to fully rely on any company to give us, consistent grading. It's always been kind of all over the place. I've had a lot of good experiences buying PSA 9 Grail vintage cards, but I've equally had so many bad experiences buying graded cards. So it can go both ways. Anyways, that's my spiel on the, on the first edition market and how, interesting that is. And also, back to that, if we're going to go from PSA 1 to kind of those mid-grade cards, what's interesting to me is the guy that had all of the moderately played gold stars, he was like, oh, I've already had so many offers on these privately. Like, I already could get 3,300 for these gold stars. I think it was like 10 or 11 gold stars. So 3,300 is right about in line with like probably what they'd be worth. But to get an offer like that on a risky kind of investment like that is pretty crazy to me. But the thing is, just like PSA 1s, I'm starting to understand why all of my cards that I used to collect that I felt pretty inexperienced collecting. I bought cards in the COVID market. I didn't want to pay premiums for 8s, 9s, 10s. So I would buy 4s and 5s and 6s and 7s. And I'm doing this thing with my hand. I would buy a lot of cards like that because it was good value to me. And it was because it was what I could afford. It was what I could budget out. What I'm seeing is the same pattern. I'm not saying that I embody the traditional classic collector, but starting out, I don't think I do anymore, but I think I did starting out. I think a lot of people go for mid-level cards, mid-grade cards, because it's just way more affordable. Whether you're buying it graded and then you know what you're getting into, or you're buying it raw and you're taking a gamble, there's still a huge market on mid-grade level cards. Yes, you're messing with the chances that you're going to have some unhappy buyers, some unhappy collectors that buy stuff and then realize that they went in over their heads and they overpaid and they got something that's not that great condition. I'm super OCD, so I know where my place is as a collector. I'm going to continue to go after like as clean of cards as I can find. That's what I personally like. I feel like that describes me as a collector better. I express myself better as a collector that way, but there's definitely a part of me that wants to hang on to the old style of collector that I was, and I'm seeing a lot of that at this trade night. I saw a lot of that at this trade night. I saw a lot of people selling mid-level grade cards, and those cards are easier to liquidate in my opinion. People would argue otherwise, oh, PSA 5, PSA 6, that's never going to sell. But I have some interesting auctions that have sold. I have some interesting sales from my buy it now listings on eBay that I'm going to talk about at the end here. But this stuff's still selling, and it's selling relatively quick. I have some very high-end cards that I have very few inquiries on because you are alienating the market that's going to go after those cards, right? There are only so few people that are going to chase high-end, super inflated, if you're buying into it, the bubble could pop any minute type cards. But where these lower, cheaper end cards, cheaper grades, or lower grades, these cards are very affordable for everybody. So while I looked at the guy with all the gold stars that were kind of rough, I thought, I wouldn't touch that. But there's a massive market for that stuff. And back to the PSA 1 guy, I was asking, what about modern? Does anybody do PSA 1 in modern? Because I don't know the answers to this. And he said, absolutely not. Modern's too fresh. It's too new. People are not doing PSA 1 modern. Maybe somebody else will contradict that in the comments. Who knows? But this seems to really apply with vintage. And it feels right with vintage, right? Old cards coming out of Timmy's shoebox and Bobby's sock drawer that have been neglected. I've heard some crazy stuff. I literally saw a first edition Charizard that when I went to Comic-Con here in Charlotte, I think 3 years ago, and the guy pulled it right out of his sock drawer. He's like, I literally had no idea it was in there. I went to my mom's house. There were some cards scattered in the back. First edition Charizard. What in the world? So there's some really cool stories, and that's what I love about like old vintage and the whole idea with PSA 1 and like really getting a lot of value out of these beat up cards with a story to them. But it also seems kind of weird because, like, you could also damage vintage cards and claim, you know, and basically alter them, and they get PSA 1. And I know people are doing that. I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I'm making a pretty good educated guess that people are altering cards to try and get PSA 1. And that's a painful path to go down, because if you alter the card, it's like, this one dude was like, how, like, the guy with the 1 collection was like, how did this card not get a 1? It was a 1.5. The back of it was obliterated. Like, obliterated. PSA definitely pop controls ones, because that card had no business being a 1.5. He showed me a 2 that was the same deal. It was like, how is this not bottom of the barrel grade? But they're pop controlling ones now. It's weird. I don't get it. It is certainly a different kind of market. But I respect it. I respect all kinds of hustles. I respect all kinds of sellers. I respect everybody's grind, because we all have a different thing that works for us. I've never felt like, no, you're all wrong and I know what I'm doing, I'm right. I'm just investing in stuff based on what I feel is safe and stuff that I feel like is going to be truly hard to get. But with that also comes your market reach. It's gonna be much harder to find people that are gonna be in the market for cards like these behind me, cards that, you know, are very hard to get your hands on. Going forward, trying to think, closing up, what's anything? Oh, I met a guy that worked on one of my cars years ago, and all this to say that a group of us got around and started talking about cars and Pokemon cards. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like there is some nerd correlation with, like, collecting things, and it's very easy to do that with sneakers, sports cars, and Pokemon cards. And one thing I also saw is the same guy that worked on my car that was collecting Pokemon now, we were wearing shirts from the same company. So it was a very small world. It was very cool to connect with everybody, but it was a very small world. Hold on one second, guys. This guy I keep this in the room because it's honestly one of my favorite pieces of, like, retro, recreated vintage clothing. But this is from a company called Backstock Co. You can find them on Instagram. They have a lot of cool stuff, but he had the Charizard shirt, but I knew it looked eerily similar to the designs, the style of this one. I love this shirt so much. It's got all the Pokemon on it. I'll probably wear it for streams for a long time. It's got all the gym trainers. I love Gym Heroes and Gym Challenge, but it was just a small world, and he knew the guys he grew up with and was friends with, the guys that started that company. So there was a lot of, like, weird connections there. Some of the guys that were at the daytime trade event that I first went to, like, about a month ago, they were there. So I'm like, now I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I know all these guys. I know these guys. I don't know this person. You know, there's a ton of people sitting in the middle with all their binders out, going through Modern. That's when I realized how I messed up not taking 151 there. And honestly, now was the time to take 151. I'm a little worried that going, you know, in another couple months or whenever they do this again at Ketchum Collectibles, that it's going to be kind of too late for 151, right? I think now is the time to strike if you are selling your 151. I will probably continue doing 151 auctions because that stuff is moving and people want that stuff to complete their sets. It was crazy. People sifting through bulk, trying to find reverses and hollows. It was nuts. There were some people that couldn't get Ditto to save their life. I have like a bajillion hollow Dittos. Like, some of this stuff was so odd to me. Like, the people were making trades and trying to make stuff work just for simple cards like that. But there's, like, a market for everything. That's one thing I learned there. Niches all around the room. One of them, this lady, her husband was a super experienced collector, but she, you know, not so much. And I don't say not experienced because of, you know, the caliber of cards in her binder, but it was more so just she didn't care as much about the value of cards. Her thing was, you know, cute, derpy Pokemon, and, you know, you can't discount that market, because when I'm selling cute, derpy cards that maybe nobody else, you know, would want, take this Miri from Team Rocket Returns. This is going to be going up in auction. Cards like that, there's people out there that just want that stuff. They want their binder to be comprised of the very thing that they love most. This goes into the whole thing of like, there's a lot of people there just collecting what they love. And that was really cool. But guys, I would not be bearish on modern alt arts at all, because modern alt arts are going to be the bread and butter of trade nights and liquidity moving forward. Also, these trade nights were huge for sealed product. You know, there's a lot of guys talking about buying, booster boxes wholesale, talking about buying it on this Facebook group called Verbank. I think that's how you say it, Verbank. I've never tried it. I don't really want to deal over Facebook groups, but I know a lot of people have had great private experiences with that. But this one individual was talking about his story on buying booster boxes for $80, $90, like super bottom of the barrel cheap. And now a lot of them, Lost Origins, 140, Fusion Strike, 130, 140, Chilling Reign, 140. Like a lot of these sets that, I didn't even need a Verbank group to get these sets. These sets at the time were just, you could find them at shops that were trying to unload them for $80, $90 a box. But a lot of deals to be made at these local groups because there's no fees, there's no shipping. And I'm like, this is how people get their sealed off. They go to these groups with their sealed stuff that might have costed 80, 90 bucks for them cash. And then they trade it for like one alt art that's worth 150 bucks, at the time. For them, they got that box for 80, 90 bucks. No one there is going to pay cash 150. That's another thing. No one there was doing cash deals. I did not see any cash thrown around at that place. I was serious. I did not see cash one time last night. Maybe I was just blind to it, but I didn't see cash thrown around at all. And I kind of expected that. Everyone was using Pokemon as their asset, as their liquidity, for trade value. It was a currency at this trade night. Pokemon became its own economy at this trade night. And as it should be. But the end of the night came around, and I had 2 slices of pizza and a water, and I watched people continue to trade. And I just thought, man, had I been going to these trade nights more, I would have discovered so many amazing deals, met so many great people, and been much more ingrained in the community and with a good idea and a pulse on what the community needs, what it wants, what people's binders are looking like, which is for the most part, ultra modern. People's binders are ultra modern. Modern is going to be everywhere, but yet still, alt arts still reign supreme. Everybody still wants them. They're still super liquid. And you could still probably get cash for them at the events, but people are mainly trading cards for stuff. I know one of my main things, if I go back to these events, will be looking for stuff to put on my eBay store. So I'll be hunting alt arts. The next time I go to these events, I will come prepared with cash and be ready to go. Speaking of cash, I didn't get any last night, but while I was there, I got some deals that came in over eBay that I'm very excited to announce. I am selling my first edition PSA 4, 5, 6, 7 collection for my first edition base set. I'm going to be doing the same thing with my commons and uncommons. I know there's another YouTuber doing the exact same thing right now, but it's all PSA 9. It's Alex from Nostalgianomics is doing the same thing. But I'm doing it because I want PSA 9. I don't see how anybody would want to sell PSA 9. I know the pop numbers are going to continue to go up. Base set, first edition base set unlimited, base set shadowless, all that was printed a lot. Maybe even shadowless less than first edition and unlimited, but all of it was printed a lot. So there's a lot of speculation that prices are going to go down on first edition base. I think it's a really ripe market for first edition base right now, and I say the opposite. I say prices are probably going to go up on first edition base mint cards. So for me, I am selling my mid-grade cards, and they are selling quite quickly for prices that are I would say a little bit higher than market, but I've set them because I am sentimental of these cards and I am going to take a fee from eBay. And I did buy a lot of these in the boom, the Pokemon COVID boom. Now, a lot of my cards are thick stamped variants. I do think the thick stamps are nicer than the thin stamps. In fact, these are both thick stamps. Okay, I wondered if I had a thin stamp to show, but I picked this Hitmonchan up during the COVID boom for $220. I did have to pay fees on that, so call it $240, let's say $235, something like that. But this just sold last night for an offer that I accepted of $330. So I know I made at least like $80, $90. I've had this card for about 2 years now, so a little bit of a hold for sure. About a year and 8 months, I'd say. But I'm very happy because I know I overpaid in a inflated market. So for me, like, I know I'm probably gonna have to take losses on some of these cards, but it was just very nice that I spent the whole night talking to people and making conversations and learning more about what people are doing in this hobby and what the average collector has. That I was rewarded at the end of the night when I came home, and I had some really great sales. So Hitmonchan is going out. We sold first edition Gyarados. That sold for $380, which was phenomenal. Like, it's not necessarily that I'm making money. It's just that I'm getting out of these cards without taking large losses because I bought in a time where things were very inflated. The market is still very strong on these kinds of cards. So, I sold this guy, which I really like, this Charizard. I picked this up for $180 cash from a buddy. I did tell the buyer I could not seem to get any decent offers on this card. Someone finally sent me an offer for $180. I was like, dude, I'm going to lose money on that. I need at least $200 after fees to break even on this card. I sent back $210. They came back $200. I just said, you know what? Screw it. Let's take it. So this guy got sold. I got out of this at break even exactly. Very happy about that. I still have the other two full arts up there, but it's just not for me. And then this Wartortle error card. I have sold one of these before. It was in much worse condition. It sold very quickly at $200. This one is in much better condition. I think it's probably, you guys might not be able to see it very well, but there's barely any whitening on this card. We got a ding right here, and I believe we've got a ding. Can't see because of all the plastic. We got a little ding right there and a ding right there. Overall, it's a very, very clean card. It's hard to see with this plastic. And I know we're going way over length here, but still, I like making long videos, but pretty clean card. I did state since the last one was in terrible condition and sold for $200, I had a pretty good feeling that this one would do at least double that. It was listed for $375, and it sold for $330. So there's a big opportunity with error cards. Okay, if you ever have bulk or buy collections, go through that stuff. Because if you find really cool error cards, like this could have just slipped under the radar and gotten sold for $15 very easily. But because I did, my due diligence, I couldn't find any information on it. And then the first sale happened very quickly. I knew that I had something fairly special. This one's been up for about a month now. And within a month sold for almost twice as much. Well, not quite twice as much, but it ended up selling. I put it up for $375. It sold for $330. So I still have one more up there. I think I'm going to end up sending it into CGC to get it graded and encased and keep it for the long haul. Because so far I don't know anybody that has these cards. But the little trio that I found in the collection, and that collection had a ton of these top deck stamp promos, which I sold at Collecticon. I sold the whole stack of them. It was about 150. I sold all those and just cashed out on that. But yeah, it could be me and the two other people that own these cards, and we're the only people that have these cards. Errors are so cool when you want something unique that is kind of priceless. So I love errors for that reason. But yeah, a couple really good sales happened. And so I'm happy about that. So overall, really good night. Learned a lot of stuff. Hopefully you guys found this video informative. Guys, stop. After this, I think tomorrow we're going to just talk about the sealed market. and like where prices are faring right now for Scarlet and Violet, Sword and Shield, some good moves that I think, and just my overall opinion on investing in sealed product. It's not all it's chopped up to be. But if you have the right resources, you can sell stuff privately. You can go to these events and unload sealed stuff. That's very interesting, as well as, you know, the type of environment we're in where people are taking investing in Pokemon more seriously, and it's not as much just a joke. And that means that people would potentially be holding on to products longer and even hoarding products more seriously and aggressively. But anyways, that's for tomorrow. Hopefully, if something else doesn't pop into my brain. Anyways, peace out, guys. I know it was a long one. Thanks for watching. I learned a lot last night. I had a great time. If I met you last night, thanks for chopping it up with me. Have a good day.